Hey, welcome back to my channel. My name is Annabelle and I'm going to show you guys how to build a server and make API calls with Bun. Bun has been officially released as its first production-ready version in just September this year, and it aims to be a substitute for Node.js in the future. It offers TypeScript support out of the box and is also a package manager that is indeed a lot faster than NPM, for instance. There's plenty of metrics and comparisons on their official website, so I'm not gonna dive deeper into that. Instead, without further ado, let's get into it. So to get started, I'm gonna open up a new terminal and we're going to install Bun globally. Sudo npm install -g for global Bun, and just wait for a couple of seconds until it's done. Okay, now let's cd over to our desktop and create a new folder, mkdir named Bun. Cd over to that folder and we're going to initialize our project. So Bun init. We're going to keep the same name, and the entry point is going to be index.js because we're not going to be using TypeScript for this project. So let me open the project that we just created in the studio. And let's go to package.json. We're going to configure the scripts start Bun run index.js. And what it allows us to do is essentially to start up our server by just using the bun start command instead of this longer, more tedious one right here. So let's go into our index.js and write the actual server. Constant server equals Bun, which is the object, serve, which is the method, and we're going to configure the port, which is going to be 3000. We're going to use the fetch function to return something as a string. So return new response. I'm just going to type in hello from Bun. And to make sure that it's running, let me just console log our server. So I'm going to open the backticks and just type in hello from the server on port and dynamically insert our port right here, server.port. And this is pretty much it. This is how simple it is to create a server here. So Bun start hello from the server on port 3000. That's it. With the server being out of the way, let's get to working on our first API request, which is going to be get. Now, we don't really have any API endpoints, so I'm going to be using this really handy website. It's called JSON Placeholder. Go ahead and navigate to it and just copy the link for the get route. So let's start off with get the RO function. This name right here, it can be anything. I'm just going to be identifying it by the type of an HTTP request I'm working with. So we'll use the try and catch block to catch any potential errors. And the method that we're going to be using to retrieve our data is called fetch. It's native to Bun, and right now you can't really use Axios, so we have to deal with that. Let's just go ahead and store it in a variable called response fetch, and we're going to put in the link that we got from JSON Placeholder. Is going to be our API endpoint. So we have to await the resolution of our promise, and for it to work, let's just add async in front of these parentheses right here. Now, in order to get access to the result of this function, we have to return something. Return response.json. The reason why we're applying this method is because we want JSON as our data type, right? So that's it for the function. Let me just move it above our server right here, and I'm going to add some conditional routing. So let's just add a request to our fetch to have access to it. And if request.url includes get, then what we want to happen is something. Otherwise, we want something else to happen, right? So let me place it right here. And let me explain where this is coming from. So imagine you have something like localhost 3000/about. This whole piece right here is your request.url, and this path name is something that we want to make sure our request.url includes, right? So if it does include that, we want something specific carried out. Otherwise, we want another set of instructions carried out. So I hope that's clear. Now we're going to await the response from our function. Await, so make sure you also add async in front of our fetch. And all that's left to do is just return something, right? So return new response. Make sure it's capitalized, and we need to stringify our data. So response right here inside the parentheses. Finally, we need to send our headers to tell the browser what kind of data we're working with. So content type is going to be application/JSON, right? So everything seems correct. Let's try to start up our server, and I'm going to go to my local host, get. And yes, this is the type of data that we got from our sample endpoint. So I think we can move on to the post request. So we're going to create our post request right now. Make sure you go back to JSON placeholder and copy the link for the post request. But actually, it's just going to be the same link minus this /1 right here. So you can just use that. Constant post equals our function is going to be similar in a lot of ways to our get request, except for we need to create some sort of data that we want to simulate our post request with. So I'm just going to add a couple of random values like name and maybe age. That should be enough. And we're going to be using the try and catch block right here. As always, console log error. And we're going to be waiting for our response to complete, right? So await, fetch, and then we'll add the link right here. Remove the /1 at the end, and now we also want to make sure that we're sending our body, right? Our body is just JSON stringify user. This is the kind of data that we want to work with. Normally, it would be some kind of user input captured and sent over, but for now, for the sake of testing, it's just those static values. Don't forget to add async here because you're going to get this error. And we also need to specify our method, which is going to be post. Finally, we need to add the headers, again, to tell our browser what kind of data we're working with. So content type application/JSON, and don't forget to return your response to access it outside the function. So let's add one more route. Else if request.url includes post. We want to first of all await the response from the function, await post. And now we want to check if our response status is equal to 201. And 201 just stands for success, or data has been created kind of response, you know. So if it is that kind of response, we want to return new response, like post request successful, right? Plus response.ok. And so where this is coming from is our response is an object, right? So imagine that you have this kind of data, okay, is the type of data on it, and it tells you whether something is true or false. Then you have the status, which just reflects either success or failure of your request. And you have a bunch of different data as well, like headers and stuff like that. So we're accessing this OK data on our response object to see whether it's true or false their request was successful, right? And if it wasn't, all we want to do is we want to return another response saying that request failed, right? So that's it. I believe this is it. So let me just run our server again and navigate back to the browser, check our post, and you see post request successful, true. So that means there were no errors. Now we can go ahead and start working on our put and delete request, right? So put is going to be so similar that you can almost copy some pieces of code, but we're going to keep practicing. So use try and catch block, console log, error, constant response equals await, fetch. Same link with the /1 at the end, because we're modifying a specific request here. So add async, add some data, update its user. Again, we're simulating a request, so this is not some sort of real data, right? We'll just change the name and change the age, like to whatever. It's a number, so we have to specify the method again. Right now it's going to be the put method, and body is going to be JSON stringify updated user. Let's add our headers. Let me just copy this right here because we've written it several times at this point, and I'm going to return our response. We'll add one more route right here. Else if request.url includes put constant response equals await put, and check whether the response status equals to 200. Because we're not creating any data, we're just updating it, the response is going to be okay and not like success or data created. So that's why we're using 200 here. Now, return new response, put request successful plus response dot okay. Otherwise, return new response request failed. So this is our put request. Let's restart our server and go ahead and check our put route. And again, you see this is successful. It means that we have successfully updated our data. So the only thing left to do is just to create our delete request, right? So let's go ahead and quickly do that. Constant delete equals our function try constant response equals await fetch. Again, it's going to be a specific route, so we're going to keep this /1 right here, and it's an asynchronous function. We're going to add catch to make sure we catch our errors, and as you can imagine, there's going to be nobody here because we are deleting data. So all we have to specify here is just our method, which is delete, right? And we can return response, which is just going to be an empty object because there is no data left, right? So this is it. This is the simplest and the smallest piece of code we've written. Now I'm just going to add one last route, else if request URL includes delete. We're going to await the response just like we did before, this time from our delete function. And if our response code or status, right, equals to 200, which means okay, then we want to return new response. Delete request successful plus response.ok. And I'm just going to copy this else right here and we should be done. Bun start, go back to Chrome, navigate to the delete route, and as you see, all of the requests have been successful. So we learned how to create a server with bun and how to make different API calls. Basically, this is all you need. Now you can just connect this to whichever framework you're working with in your front end and you'll be good to go. Thank you so much for watching. Any kind of feedback is going to be really helpful. So feel free to comment and like and subscribe the video. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.